Welcome back to the 990 Podcast, guys. My name is Ray.
And I am Jay.
Hey, glad you guys are here. And if you watched last episode, we were at a different studio.
You know what? We're back indoors.
We're back.
We are back indoors.
We're back.
And it was a good experiment. I think, honestly, it didn't play back as bad as I thought it was going to.
No, it's not.
It's a little peaceful. Little
it's not
birds
that
in the
bad.
background, you
Yeah.
know? Sounding like
Yeah.
a sanctuary. But yeah, man, definitely back in the house. A lot more quiet, a lot more controlled.
Talking about sanctuary, there's a spot out in Cunha, I think. When you go up past Cunha, there's like I don't know if it's like a temple or something like that, in Vietnamese. But I've seen it on like IG. And it's like this hidden gem where it's just super peaceful and like there's a nice view of, I don't know where it is, but super like I gotta check that out.
Yeah,
but
man.
there's like hidden gems out in Hawaii that I've
There's
never
a ton.
never been. Yeah,
There's a ton. There's a ton.
you grew up in Big Island, yeah?
I did.
Do you know all the spots there?
Yes and no. So
Yeah.
okay, so grew up on the Big Island, Kailua Kona.
Mm-hmm.
Born and raised there. But lived there all the way until I graduated at 18, and then I moved. Went to school in Oregon.
Yep.
After Oregon, came back to Oahu. So I, really haven't lived in the Big Island for quite some time.
Yeah.
I think
how many years was that?
Oh man, I mean, honestly, at this point, I've lived in Oahu longer than I've lived in Big Island. So
Gotcha.
Oahu
gotcha.
is now home. I will always consider the Big Island a home, but so much has changed.
Sure.
The last time I was home, I want to say that, gosh, it was with my family. My sister, she got an Airbnb, and we were on the Big Island. And this was honestly at least, I want to say eight years ago or so.
Yeah.
Quite some time.
Yeah.
And that's the last time I've been back to Kona.
But nothing really there to visit back, right? Because your parents are already.
My parents are there.
Oh,
I still. I mean, excuse me.
I mean, not-
no.
I mean-
Excuse me. My parents are here. I'm
Yeah,
so sorry. My
at
parents
that time.
At that.
Yeah.
No, actually, at that time they were here as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What I meant to say was, I still have some friends there, but in regards to just family, no, everybody's here now.
Love life wise, back in Big Island, was there anything important there?
On the Big Island, no,
No.
no serious relationships there. So again, other than a few friends that I still got back on the Big Island, really nothing connecting me there.
Yeah. So, guys, just FYI, this is gonna be a podcast episode about J.O. Got in a deep dive
Oh.
because we did my episode season one.
We did, man. Yeah.
Season one. So this is kind of a deep dive on who
Get to-
J.O. Yeah,
get to know me
Get to
better.
know J.O.
As if I don't talk enough. I know.
Well, I love this podcast because it's something to give to people that want to know us or have have some type of legacy. But yeah, we're gonna get into it. What's one quality you'd love to have from your mom or your dad?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
One quality
start it
that
off.
I would love to have from my mom and my dad. For my mom, tenacity.
Talk about it.
Yeah. My mom is a go-getter. It's interesting. I've inherited things from both of my parents. I've talked at length about, some of the traits that I admire the most about my mom. And one of the things that I really, really admire is just how tenacious she is. When I say that, sometimes you hear that word, it sounds really aggressive.
Sure.
But I mean it in the way that once she has her mind set on something, she'll focus in on that and she'll make sure to accomplish that goal. And that's
Yeah.
something that she's always tried to instill in my sister and I. I think I just have a lot more laid back approach on life.
Got it.
In general. So if there's one thing that I wish that was a little bit more like my mom, it would probably be that tenacity. In regards to my dad, it's kind of funny because it plays opposite, So, my dad is probably just being known as one of the most mellowest people in the world. Anyone that knows my dad, Ray, is he's a mellow guy. He is the epitome of just mellow, and I mean that in the best way, right? He does not get rattled. He has a very even temperament. The way he approaches the world is just really keeping everything in perspective. He has this really cool filter on the world where it's just like, look, man, live your life, be happy, don't impede on others, like
Sure.
make sure that you leave a positive impact on this planet. But at the same time, it's, again, we've mentioned this, but his mantra is, it's not that serious.
Yeah.
And he's told me that multiple times throughout my life. So I've kind of, the two things that I admire about my parents is, one, my mom's tenacity, but also two, the way my dad approaches the world. And I've kind of struggled with that
Yeah.
because they're polar opposites,
Right. Right.
like it's two different approaches on life. One's a kind of a go out and get it, and the other
Yep.
one's like, okay, well, just let it come to you, and just realize that if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And finding a balance can be a challenge.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I think if there's anything I could learn from my parents, is to have a little bit of both of that.
As you're talking, Jay, I'm thinking like those are, like you said, it's polar opposites, and like I wonder if that's a cultural thing
Possibly
because your
well,
dad is
Japanese,
and
yep,
your mom is
Chinese. Yeah, that
and
is interesting.
it's yeah. And I don't want to like what do you call
Yeah.
stereotype, but I know Chinese are go getters. They're like super hard workers.
That is stereotypical. No, but you know what? It's funny, right? So you talk about just Chinese, the yin and the yang. That is my mom
Sure.
and my dad. They are very opposite in that sense. And they are a testament to opposites attract, and then they can work. Like my parents just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. So
I'm just thinking like, how did they
Yeah.
meet? Like, how did if she's a go getter, she probably went
Oh,
up to dad.
probably, from what I do understand, they've known each other since elementary school.
That's insane,
Right, so
That's crazy.
They've known each other since they were little kids. Of course, nothing romantic there.
Yeah.
But they have known each other for that long, and then it wasn't until college age is when they got together. And
What
then-
in the like? They just had one school, one high school.
Yeah,
One
yeah. I
college.
think they grew up in really, really similar areas. Lilia side, and then from there, I want to say, I might be butchering this. It might be my elementary or something like that. But then from there, they just started going to different schools, and then kind of lost track. And I don't know if it was one of those moments of like, hey, you look familiar type of thing. I should probably ask them about that. But for whatever reason, I think just 6 degrees of separation and friends of friends, they somehow found their way back, and then started dating in college and have been together ever since. So shout out to my parents, 50 years. So,
That's great. That's insane.
yeah,
It
but
sounds like a movie.
it does. And it's funny because when I just think about my temperament versus my wife's, who my wife, yeah, firecracker, yeah. So it's really similar.
Yeah.
I would say she reminds me a
That's
lot about
funny.
my mom.
Yeah.
When it comes to just the way that she approaches the world, and there are traits where I get bent out of shape with, but for the most part,
Yeah.
this back nine life that I'm trying to have right now is a lot more mellow. So again, I'm just really trying to emulate some of the characteristics my dad shows here
Right.
in this marriage that I have with Tristan.
Gee, I heard that. I think it was intentional where you look for someone that has your mom's traits, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But I heard that the person you usually end up with it usually has some traits that your mom
Yeah.
exudes.
Oh, 100%. I'm
And I
sure,
find that
it's
kinda
kind of
true.
funny, right? Like, what is it? Uh, there's a specific,
Hmm.
I want to say, um, it's escaping me. There is
Yeah.
there is a term for that,
Okay.
where people are like, you're in love with your mother. I'm like, no, it's not that.
Yeah.
You can love your mom, but it's not that type of thing. But yeah,
Right.
I think when you look at things that you admire, qualities that you admire, absolutely, I can see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, like with Joss, her well, with my mom, I think that maybe because it's a safe place that you've known to, your whole life, maybe that's something that you're unaware of. That's something that you want, or maybe not want, maybe desire in that relationship. So I don't know, maybe that's how it turns out to be. From your perspective, what's your perspective on like how your parents raised you, in a sense where it's like, do you think it was the best atmosphere, or can you talk about growing up with the way that they taught you things and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, everybody's gonna say this, like, I had the best upbringing, yada yada yada. But truthfully, like I cannot imagine having a different childhood than what my parents were able to provide for me. I
Mm.
just do want to say it's Oedipus. So
Oedipus.
there is a complex there.
Okay.
I just want to.
Never
My
heard of that.
my OCD is gonna
I mean
say
the
that.
term. I've
Yeah,
never.
that
Yeah.
yeah, it is a complex where you fall in, like you basically are in love with your mother. So not that, but yeah, I did want to say that. I was like, this is gonna bother me. Shows my OCD here. I had to like look that
Oedipus.
up real
Yeah.
quick.
Learn something today.
There you go.
Yeah.
But back to the raising my childhood. Yeah, my sister and I were very fortunate. You know,
Mm.
we were just surrounded by love our entire life. You know, when it comes to just always feeling supported.
Yeah.
I think that was a big thing. You know, there was a lot of just open communication and dialogue ever since we were kids. You know, my parents always just encouraged us to ask questions.
Mm.
They always wanted us to feel safe. You know, with anything, you know, like that was on our mind, anything that was bothering us, anything we had curiosities about. They always wanted us to just be open with them and honest with them. So I think just being open and honest was a big thing.
What was their? I mean, how did they that that mind, I guess, or that way of doing? Where do you think that comes from?
You know, and that's interesting, right? So my father, well, actually, both of my parents, their parents are immigrants. So you
Mm.
know, uh, my dad, I remember, talking about the relationship that he had with his father. So my
Mm.
grandfather, who I never met,
Mm.
passed away before I was born. From what I understand, did
Mm.
not speak much English at all. Um, you know, my father and his siblings could understand for the most part, but they weren't really able to have a lot of dialogue growing up, you know, growing up
Mm.
American. So, you know, there wasn't a really deep communication between them.
That's
And I think
interesting.
for my
Yeah.
father growing up in that environment, he really wanted to do the opposite when it came to raising his kids. He wanted to just make sure he
Mm.
talked to us, and again, that we would never be afraid to come
Yeah.
to him for anything. And you know, the same with my mom. My mom had a different relationship.
Uh huh.
Even though both of her parents were from Hong Kong, you know, I think that when they got to America, it's really interesting. So my grandfather, um, he got sick when I was very young, so I didn't really have much of a relationship with him either.
Mm.
I just remember him not being well, and then when he passed away, you know, it was sad because you know I just remember losing my grandfather, but I just never remembered him being healthy. But my
Mm.
grandmothers, my on both sides, very strong relationship with them. But
Yeah.
you know, back to what my mom, the way that they were raised was really different. You know, like there was a lot of cultural ties to their Chinese heritage,
Yeah.
but they were also raised very American. Okay,
Mm.
and I think that
Mm.
was very important for her parents, that they were raised in a very American Western way, and that really, I think, encouraged a lot of communication.
Got it.
So, you know, from both sides, my dad wanted to do opposite of what his parents did, and then my mom
Yeah.
kind of emulating the communication that she had with
Huh.
her family.
Yeah.
That I think really just was a good pairing. So when it came to the way that they raised Marcy and I, it was just really focusing on just having really good dialogue. You know, a lot of trust involved in
That's so
sharing
interesting.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy because now I'm thinking of like when immigrants came to, the States,
Yeah.
it's like that exact relationship with your grandfather and your dad. It's like the
Yeah.
communication.
Yep.
One, you're growing up in a different
Oh,
culture.
yeah.
And then on the other hand, like how do you
Sure.
communicate that? That's
Yeah.
kind of like a lost in, there's got to be some type of,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think first generation, second generation have a very different experience with their childhoods. You know, by the time
Yeah.
you hit third generation or so, things get watered down, but a lot of it is basically what has been established from the first generation, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's crazy. Growing up in back to Big Island,
Yeah.
is there a place, as a small kid growing up that always, keeps you brings back like a safe memory or like,
Safe
makes you
memory.
feel
Yeah,
safe?
yeah,
Yeah.
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 There's a couple of beaches. You know, there's
Beaches.
beaches, man. I know you don't hear
Bro,
me talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
the water ever, right?
Exact-
I grew up as a little kid. We would go to the beach a lot.
Mm.
And there was a couple of beaches that we would go to as a family. So there's a place on the Big Island in Kona called Old Airport.
Okay.
And then
Is it still open or?
no, so it's kind of interesting. It was the original airport, so
Ah.
it's kind of cool. It is definitely, in my opinion, a historical landmark. But basically, Old Airport, it's a runway, it's a strip, okay.
Okay.
So once the airport became decommissioned, the strip was still there,
Wow.
and it's right there on the coastline. So
Yeah.
it's just got beach access the entire runway down, and it's just one
Wow.
runway.
Yeah.
So of course I was way too young to remember when that was ever functioning.
Yeah.
I don't know when they decommissioned that, but the park, it's now like basically a park, and then you
Okay.
can go down the strip, and then you can just park anywhere down the strip, and there's
Yeah.
just beach
That's
access the
cool.
entire way.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful area.
Yeah.
Like I think when you're young, it's kind of neat because all the sports are there. They have soccer fields there, baseball field, football field, everything is in
Yeah.
that area,
That's
right?
sick. Yeah.
Everybody's grad party was out there. I knew of people that had their wedding receptions out there.
Wow.
Everybody's kids' first birthday parties are out there. So there's a lot of fond memories of that area, old
Yeah.
days. There's also a lot of shenanigans that went on in that area too. So like later on in life, that's where all the kids went to go just get in trouble too. Like
Yeah.
it's funny. Like after a certain hour, they close that area off, and then that's kind of just the cruise spot. So anytime people want to just go cruising around, you'll end up at Old A's just parked out there, just drinking. And yeah, man, fond memories of that too. But that's probably the one that I could probably say that even to this day, if I were to go back, I would probably cruise down Old A's for sure.
And you said you and your family used to go down there
All the time, all the time.
like what, every week.
Yeah. There's a beach down there, Keiki Beach. We would go down there as a family. Just do a little picnic, hang out there for a couple of hours. Again, we did all of our sports down there, so we were always near the water in some capacity every weekend.
Yeah.
So that's probably the fondest memory for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that maybe passes a lot of people, but the consistency of doing something with your family is such underrated.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Like, how does that, thinking about it now, is that something that you would implement these days, like with your marriage? Or
Yeah,
I
I think establishing routines is important. Something outside of what you are required to do.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we gotta go to work, right?
Tasks. Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
go to work, gotta pay taxes, gotta pay these bills, gotta do this, gotta do
Yeah.
that. There are certain things that need to be done, and there are requirements. No way around it. But yeah, anything out of the ordinary, if you can kind of establish a routine that's just based off of something that you enjoy,
Yeah.
super prime. I'll be honest, man, I'm kind of struggling with that at the moment. I think that we're real big on work-life balance, and there are times
sure.
where I just kind of feel like work overtakes it. It's interesting, ever since I've kind of made this move to this new spot, I would say that I've been able to clock out mentally. But the work that I'm doing, the time that I'm there, just is more physically taxing.
Yeah.
So I'm just, on my days off, I'm just kind of recovering, and maybe I'm just getting old and just lazy, but I want to kind of get back to a point where I attack the days that I have off with a little bit more tenacity, I guess you can say. And
Sure.
kind of try to just find some different routines for myself and for Tristan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any best friends growing up, like
Yeah,
in
man.
Big Island?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So fortunate. Kaha, I don't even know if this guy's listening. He said he listened to a couple episodes. We'll see if he's listening to this one. Shout out to him, man.
Yeah.
My best friend. There's a rare quality. It's a rare gift to be able to say that you've had the same best friend your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kaha and I really wish I could pull up a picture. We always talk about it, and I cannot find this photo. I want to say we were about 3 or 4 years old. Yeah, maybe about 4 years old, and we were playing soccer. So we have a picture together when we were on the same team, and it's funny because he's just had a presence in my life my whole life. We went to different middle schools, met back up again, intermediate school, and then I think we got really close right around that time. and then going into high school just became inseparable.
Mm.
And yeah, he's still my best friend to this day.
That's crazy. That's wild. Yeah.
Really, really lucky.
Yeah.
Best guy I know, easily, hands down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How I mean, you're fortunate enough to have a best friend from that, adolescent time.
Yep.
How is your perspective on like finding friends or becoming friends with people now that you have some type of, friendship to refer to?
Oh man,
You know what I mean?
it's hard to kind of have, that's a pretty high standard, to hold
Yeah, yeah.
anybody to, right? So
Right.
the reason why Kaha and I are so close is we grew up together, but we also understand where we came from. Even though we don't live there anymore, there's just a lot of memories that, and experiences that we shared that kind of bond you for life.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to have, if you're able to have people like that in your life still, to hold on to them.
Yeah.
In regards to just new friends, though, honestly, for me, honesty is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Reliability, dependability, loyalty is huge.
Yeah.
The older that you get, I just did this the other day.
Okay.
I went through my phone, and then I was just kind of scrolling, and I started being like, I don't even know who this person is.
Right.
And I just started deleting contacts, and
Yeah.
it sucks when then you get the
The
number,
one phone call.
the one number, and they're like, "What's up, bro? How you doing?" You're like, "Ooh,
Oh.
yeah, new phone. Who this?"
Yeah. He's like, aren't you going to our 25th anniversary?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I know. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, but yeah, man. And I think I realized that when I first got to Oahu, and this is back in 2002. Okay, so I was just hell bent on meeting people. So quick story here. When I moved to Oahu, I had a couple of friends here, Kaha being one of them.
Okay.
But that was it.
Yeah.
At this point, everyone that I knew was back on the Big Island or back in Oregon. Okay, so when I
Yeah.
left Oregon and all my buddies from college, I moved here really not knowing a lot of people. So linked up with Kaha really early on,
Yeah.
and he just kind of plugged me in to his social network, and I was able to meet some really amazing friends that are still friends to this day through him.
Yeah.
So I owe a lot to him for getting me just kind of situated in Oahu. But also, I just was kind of on this gung ho mission to just meet people on my own. I used to do weirdo shit all the time where I would just go out
Weirdo.
by myself.
Yeah.
Okay, like I'm
I don't
not.
think that's weird.
No, it's weird. It's weird.
You didn't finish the story?
I can honestly no. Well, I mean, okay, you want to go to a movie by yourself nowadays? No problem. Very rarely you're gonna see a guy go out to a bar by himself and just meet
Yeah.
people. Okay,
Yeah.
that was me. And the reason being is because I just wanted to get to know Oahu and people.
Got it. Yeah.
And I think that I just did that so frequently that I just started seeing people and recognizing people, and then just somehow found a way to plug myself into that network, and met a lot of people early on just kind of through Honolulu nightlife.
Yeah.
And some of them, I'm still friends with to this day. Met a lot of really great people through that, But as far as closeness goes, when I first moved here, I very, very few of those friends that I'm still in regular contact with.
Yeah.
And the ones that I am, I think I discussed this in a previous episode, but we rarely see each other, maybe once a year, if
Sure.
that. But these are also people that I know are just more than just drinking buddies. I know I could
Yeah.
actually depend on them if I needed them.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the reason you went to Oahu after college?
There wasn't so. I graduated with such a generic degree. I was a sociology and communications minor. But when I was working in Oregon, it was the Convention Visitors Bureau. So I got really lucky and was able to get to Oahu and then find work really easily early on in the tourism industry. So I actually worked at a hotel in Waikiki as a sales manager. And that was kind of short lived. We won't get into that one. Not good at my job, obviously, but anyway, that was kind of just the reason why I moved here, because there wasn't a lot of opportunity for that from what I saw back on the Big Island. And I also just wanted to try something different. I think to me, growing up in Kona, you always think of Oahu as being like, the Honolulu as being the big city.
Sure, yeah.
And everything fun happens over there. So when you're in your early 20s, you want to be where it's fun, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of a big push for me.
Before we get into the college days,
Yeah.
what was like intermediate school like for you?
Intermediate
Were you
school.
like a popular kid? Were you?
Yeah,
Was your
man.
big? Were your school big or was your school?
No, not a very big school. I went to so my elementary school and intermediate school was 5 minutes from my home growing up. I could walk there. It's
Mm,
Kelikei Elementary and Intermediate, and my life through elementary and intermediate, it was just fun. It was interesting
mm.
because both of my parents are educators. My dad actually
Uh,
taught at the intermediate school.
oh, wow.
So as far as getting to school, couldn't ever ditch
Yeah.
because my dad would take us to school every morning.
Were you ever afraid of getting in trouble?
Oh, all the
Like,
time. Lived in fear.
yeah,
Of, and it's
exactly.
funny, right? I just talked about how awesome my parents are. I was always afraid of doing anything wrong in school because it would 100% get back to my parents.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's also, you got to think about it. So, I'm sure you've felt this
Uh-huh.
growing up in the church with your father being a prominent figure in the church.
Yep.
You're like, oh man,
Yeah.
anything I do is gonna go back to my dad, right?
Yeah.
Same thing, dude.
Hold on, let me
Yep.
ask you this. Was it coming from a place of like consideration or a place of fear or both?
Both, right? So I don't think I really realized it as a consideration at that young,
Yeah.
at that young of an age. I think, and when I say fear nowadays, my parents and I can laugh about some of these things, but
Sure.
really it was more like if I acted out, if I was just being a kid, even,
Yeah.
like, it would get back to my parents.
Yeah.
It would 100% get back to my parents. So there was that, but
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's funny when you think back to that age. I think everybody kind of has a similar experience, right? You're living for recess and lunch,
Yeah, seriously.
right?
Seriously.
So the funnest part of school is when you first get to school and you have, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, which seems so long
Yeah.
before, the bell rings and you got to go to class, right? But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
live for that time because, I mean, when you're in intermediate, you're saying what's up to all your friends.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like you're trying to flex with whatever fit you put together.
I think intermediate's the time where you're so aware of your,
Oh, 100%. I thought I had something going on every day. I don't
Yeah.
know. Look at some of those situations now, but yeah, I mean, like you want to like show off whatever you're wearing.
Yeah, yeah.
And you just want to be cool, right?
Right.
And then you go through class, and then you get your recess and whatnot. But it's funny. There's a very distinct change where recess goes from playing to hanging out, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
don't remember when it was, but there's an age, maybe it's 5th, 6th grade, where you stop playing dodgeball, foursquare, basketball, whatever.
Yeah.
And then now you just want to hang out in an area and you find a spot, and that's just where you're going to stand,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
you're just going to stand with your friends there and just talk story. And that's kind of now what you do.
Yeah.
You,
That's
you,
funny.
you got the jocks that are still playing basketball and
Right.
throwing around football, but everybody else is kind of just hanging out
in
now,
one
right?
place,
And
yeah.
that just continues all the way through high school if you think about it.
No, that's true.
But yeah, man, that was my experience. I don't think it was really much different than anybody else's. And that's what's really interesting is, seeing kids now. Given kids are a lot more crappy nowadays.
Interwebs, man.
Oh, bro.
I think it's the
The
interwebs.
stuff that these guys say to each other is so brutal.
It's nuts.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
I'm standing there as a bystander and I want to correct them. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, bro, like,
the severity of like things people say. 'Cause
insane.
I'm like, so this. I think yesterday, Joe, I seen the Lakers lost to was the Nuggets. It was
Okay.
playoff.
Yeah,
it's
yep,
playoff,
yep,
right?
yep.
There's a picture of D'Angelo Russell.
Okay.
Because he played like crap. It's maybe an AI photo of him in a back, like cameras looking at his back, but there's like poop on his butt.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
leaking through whatever.
Okay.
I'm like, bro, where are we going, guys?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
this is where you lose respect, man. Like, it was kind of like a disturbing photo. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, can you do better? I mean, you could have chosen another picture, man. Like, it's getting nuts. And I'm all for like competitiveness
Yeah,
and whatever.
yeah.
But this one's kind of more. I don't know. It felt like.
But you know what's funny and not funny? It's
Yeah.
not some 8-year-old that made that. It's some grown man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Like for what? For clicks?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. No,
come
100
on,
100%.
bro. Like,
100%.
that was like Yeah.
But it starts at home, right?
Mhm.
So again, some of the stuff that these kids say to each other, some of the things that they do to each other, you
Yeah.
wouldn't even fathom that when we were like younger,
Yeah, and
right?
there's a playfulness when we're younger,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when you're teasing someone, or
For sure. You
now
can
it's
you
more
can
like,
bag on each other, but
yeah,
now it's just like intentionally just trying to hurt people, and
yeah,
you're like, come
it's
on, man.
nuts. Like,
And
I
I
hate it.
I'm actually really glad that given different generation, but
Mm.
I'm glad I didn't grow up with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Just that,
tough.
just the mean spiritedness.
Hmm.
Even things where like it seems kind of funny to talk about, but like you just
Uh-huh.
look at even like fighting when you're like a little kid, like you
Yeah.
see fights break out at school, and then
Hmm.
like the next day, after the suspension,
Yeah,
these guys are cool again, and there's
yeah,
not
yeah,
like it's not like how it is now. Like
yeah.
people aren't trying to kill each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm like,
Uh,
come on, guys, what's
I'm
going
really
on?
glad that I didn't grow up with that.
Yeah,
I am fearful for the generation that is growing up with that at the moment,
yeah,
where they have to
yeah.
kind of fear for their lives over dumb shit like that.
What was your first experience of your like crushes and stuff?
Crushes. Oh,
What's your earliest memory
yeah,
of that?
man, like early on.
Do you remember her name?
I'm not gonna say it.
She might be listening.
No, guaranteed not. But it's just funny because I think that I was just always, man, yeah, I think I just was always lovesick, man. Until I hit college, I didn't have a serious girlfriend.
Hmm.
And I kind of jokingly said it, but I was also serious. Like I probably fell in love about 20 times when I was in,
Mm,
younger in my high school days, and
yeah,
even younger than that, because you just fall for people, and you just think that this is like the most
the one.
amazing
Yeah,
person and whatnot. And
I feel you,
again,
bro.
nothing serious, right?
Yeah,
So things definitely changed once I hit college and got into some serious relationships. But
yeah.
yeah, yeah, always crushing.
What was the like the in your mind and in your like experience? What was the most proudest like romantic thing you did for someone?
Oh man, this guy putting me on the spot
Oh,
here.
shucks, baby.
No, no, no. Most romantic thing that
Because I feel like the reason why I asked you, because
yeah.
I think we're both romantics.
Oh yeah.
I think later down in my life, I become more like pragmatic and more
Oh no, Oh, absolutely.
But I'm well, we've done some pretty romantic things.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, I will. This is a safe, and,
Oh, say what?
this is a safe answer and not fair.
My-
I will say that I've oftentimes talked to Tristan about the version that she's got of me now, and very
Mm.
similar to you, where I still definitely want to be that romantic guy. It's funny because she's just not as receptive to it, right? So
Yo.
in fairness to my marriage,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, to me nothing else really matters. Like I probably at some point would have moved mountains for a significant other, but
Sure.
really that kind of fares in comparison to like the simplicity that I have,
Yeah.
and the relationship that I have now. It's funny because you do all these grand gestures when you're younger,
Uh-huh.
and they're appreciated, but now I feel like smaller gestures mean so much more, if that makes sense.
For sure. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's the safe
that's
answer.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
I think my wife will appreciate that
Appreciate-
one. Yeah, she'll like, you
That-
did what for who?
Oh shucks, my bad. I never put that in the prenup. It's funny when you said Tris isn't maybe not as receptive as
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny because Josh is the same.
Well,
I
I
wouldn't
mean,
say the same
well,
way, but
you use the word pragmatic
Yeah.
quite a bit, but I think it's a very good word, and I think that our wives are also pragmatic.
yeah,
Where we're all in this point in our lives where we want the same things, and when you have a unified goal,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter how you get there, whatever steps you
Yeah.
got to take, right? But because of that, because you get so focused on whatever goal that might be,
yeah.
a lot of the other things that are still meaningful and important,
Uh huh.
they don't take as much priority because you
Sure.
have bigger things,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
have bigger things on the way. Like, when we were trying to buy this house, like, I mean, we were all in, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
yeah, I mean, dinners and flowers are
It's
nice, but
different.
it's different when you're trying to put all your money into a mortgage, if that makes
Yeah.
sense, right?
No,
So,
yeah, yeah.
um,
Love looks a little different
it
when
does, it
you're
does,
yeah.
and again, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that there's romance in different ways at this age.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it definitely looks different than when you were 18 years old, for sure.
When we were getting married, I jokingly said to Josh, "Oh, what if like you cool if I like sing at the wedding
Yeah,
or?"
yeah.
I forgot what it was, but she didn't.
She
She made
sang,
me.
didn't she sing as
We
well? You
sang,
just sang a
but
duet.
then I
Yeah.
told her like, "Oh, my love one of the
Mm-hmm.
lovely things I do is like sing songs to girls."
Yep.
But then for some one event, she I felt like she wouldn't have
Oh.
liked it or whatever.
Oh, okay, okay,
I was
okay.
so salty, and I didn't. She was like, "No, you can sing to me or
Yeah,
whatever."
yeah.
I never like. Yeah, I felt so salty.
Oh man, that's fine. Okay, look, I've never had to face. I've never sang for a woman. You
Yeah.
you definitely got me on that one, man.
But it's just funny because like it can be received in
Yeah,
different ways. Yeah, but that's cool that what you said because the older you get, washing the dishes.
yeah.
Yo, yeah, it's romantic in a sense.
It is. It is. It is. It can be.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. In college, bro.
Okay.
Was that kind of like your most remembered days, or? 'Cause
Um,
it seems like you had fun in
I
college.
had a lot of fun in
Mm.
college. You know, I kind of glossed over when we were talking about. I think last episode we talked about like then and now, and
Oh yeah.
I didn't mean to diminish the relationship that I had in college because it was such an important relationship. I
Mm.
kind of glossed over it, but 4 years with this person, like,
Mm.
and I think the one thing that I wanted to make the point because maybe she'll listen to this, maybe not, but it
Sure.
was that she's just was such a wonderful person,
Sure.
and I have
Yeah.
nothing bad to say about her at all.
Hmm.
I can honestly say that, and I think we just grew up, just grew apart,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people are really looking for sensationalized reasons why people don't make it and break
Yeah.
up, and there wasn't any. 4 years
Interesting.
together at
Yeah.
that point in your life just gets so intense that you just
Mm.
want to start. You just want different things at the end of that period, and
Yeah.
I think we just wanted different things. But with that said, I mean,
Uh-huh.
I think having her as such a huge important point in my life during that period, it kind of dictated what was going on in my college life. Everything was
Mm.
kind of surrounded with the relationship. Don't get me wrong, had a lot of fun, a lot of friends, but it would always kind of go back to that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that kind of, that worked for better or worse. I think for me, I probably wouldn't got into a lot more trouble if it wasn't for her. Honestly, I had
Yeah.
some knucklehead friends in Oregon, dude. Like, I don't know, like,
This is gonna be a separate episode, by the way.
yeah, I always talk about like these punk days.
I
but, like,
know, though. We're
it
gonna get to it.
It started in college,
college.
dude. It did. Like, I was such a, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, one thing I can say about myself that I'm really glad that I grew out of was just this. I had this angst about me when I was
Okay.
younger, and I could not. I didn't know where it came from, and I've actually
Mm.
gone through therapy. I'm still in therapy, but
Mm.
one thing that I've worked quite a bit about talking about was like, where does this anger come from?
Mm.
Because it's not coming from a family. You know what I mean? Like, I just kind of talked about this environment that I grew up with, and them always wanting to be open and honest. That's probably the one thing I wasn't ever able to be honest with them about. That I get
Mm.
these emotions that I don't know what to deal with, whether it be
Mm.
frustration or anger, sometimes even rage, where I'm just like, I don't even know why I'm
Yeah.
this upset about anything right now.
Sure.
Like nothing traumatic happened to me that I can remember in my childhood growing up with my family that would make me feel that way.
Mm.
But for whatever reason, yeah, maybe it was just outside influences, just wanting to kind of be bad.
Mm.
Sounds horrible, but in context, not nearly as bad as I could have been. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
but like, yeah, got into some trouble, got into some fights, got into some drunken mayhem. Like, a lot of all that happened during college as well. So again, luckily I had this girl that kind of pulled me away from that, but
Yeah.
I think I was really influenced by a lot of things during those years.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I have a love-hate relationship with being in Oregon, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Very important time of my life.
Mhm.
I will say this, and people can take this with a grain of salt, but my personal opinion, college is a luxury, man. Sometimes though, it's kind of for the birds, man. Like
Mm.
we put so much emphasis on higher education, and I think it's important.
Yeah.
I think another episode that we're gonna get into hopefully is the "If I Ruled the World"
Uh.
episode. And one
Yeah.
thing that I would say is I believe that it's important everybody has at least a high school education in some form. You
Yeah.
can get a high school equivalency,
Yep.
but after that, I think relevant real world experiences, life experiences, and work experiences will dictate the type of person you're going to be. I don't think college is necessary for that. And I don't think it
Yeah.
really adds a lot of value to who
Mhm.
you are as a worker and as a person. We put
Yeah.
so much stake into it, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
If you can afford it, if it's something that you feel like will benefit you, by all means.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
through personal experience, I can't remember anything that I learned in college other than chugging 12 beers in a sitting that I've brought into my current life.
Right,
You
right.
know, so there's that.
College, your college day seems like a blessing in disguise. Because now I want to ask, like, how did that influence, like, the person that you wanted to be, and how did you?
Yeah, well, okay, so good and bad, right? So I
Mm,
mean, one compliment that I get quite a bit is that you're pretty worldly, you're pretty articulate, and
mm,
I appreciate that, and I also, that's something that I really really I try my best to be, like
mm.
with an open perspective on everything, but to be able to kind of speak eloquently about different topics, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did learn that in school, and I think it's just being around different people. So in that sense, it's
yeah.
very good, but it had very little to do with what I was learning in school. It
Gotcha,
was the
gotcha.
people that I was around. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Kind of funny thing in college though. So I had all the college kids that I was hanging out with, and on the outside influence, there was a bunch of people that were around the college that weren't going to college.
Interesting.
Punk ass
So
kids.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
he's
yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, but so for better or worse, those two groups that were my friend groups, they influenced me in a lot of ways,
Hmm.
good and bad,
Okay.
good and bad. But I think those experiences that I had is really kind of what brought me to formulate the person that I am here.
Hmm.
But really didn't have much to do with the education itself.
Yeah. Don't go to college.
Yeah, go to the community college.
Yeah.
Hey, I will
Hey.
say this. So, Lane Community College it's one of the top ranked community colleges in the nation.
Oh,
Is
really?
in Eugene, Oregon,
Wow.
and it is minutes from the University of Oregon. Okay, so
Mm.
my first year, I flunked out of the university. I'm not joking. I was like, okay, so did not do good. Was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
spending too much time with my girlfriend and
Yeah.
just partying too much.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, just did not pay attention. This is the first time you got to remember when you're in high school, you got to go to school, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like you got to go. Now all of a sudden you're like, I don't got to go to school.
Right.
Your,
Right.
your parents are paying for your school, but
Yeah.
you don't got to go.
Right.
So, you wake
Yep.
up in the morning hungover or whatever, and you decide I don't want to go to class. So I wasn't going to class.
Yeah.
And I wasn't taking school seriously. I have a reoccurring nightmare to this day. I
Mm.
think I had it again maybe like a couple months ago. I wake up in a panic and I'm like, I forgot to do this paper.
Mm.
I forgot to do this paper. I missed my final exam.
Right.
Isn't
Right.
that crazy? I've been
That's
out of
insane.
school for so long, and that's still a thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of the bad habits
bad-
that I started when I was in school. All this to say, okay, so flunked out of my freshman year. Then my mom was like, "You're getting your ass back to, you're coming home."
Yeah.
And I said,
Yeah.
no. And truthfully, the
No, no,
reason
no, Mom.
the reason being is because my girlfriend was there.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So she helped me get enrolled in the community college.
Yeah.
I spent I spent a couple of semesters there,
Yeah.
and then I was able to get enough credits to go back to school, and I actually ended up on the dean's list back at the University of
Wow.
Oregon. So turned my life around. But
Hey.
yeah, man, it's just prioritizing, right? But what I'm
Yeah.
saying is that I was paying community college prices, and I feel like I got the same education as I did at
Sure.
the university.
Yeah.
So, props to anybody that wants to better themselves, especially if you have a route that further education is going to help you with.
Yeah.
But if there's anybody that just says like, oh, I don't know what I want to do, and I guess I'm going to go to college, don't waste your money, man. Just
Yeah.
figure out what you want to do and focus your time and effort on that,
Right.
and your money or your parents' money.
Yeah, yeah. Side note, if people are trying to do a 4-year degree, I take your prerequisites at community college.
Yeah, nothing wrong with
It's
that.
so it's cheaper, and they take the credits. Like
know.
I don't,
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Me either.
Yeah.
Me either.
Man, going back to that idea of being you have to go to school when you're in high school, and you don't have to go when you're when you're in college.
Yep.
I recently listened to this podcast where it's like, this at this point of your timeline, you're really experiencing and figuring out, or you're opening up the guardrails, like as to like what you can do
Yep.
and what you can't, and what you choose to do and what you choose not to do. So it's like I realized, like, oh shucks, this point in time, like, you don't have people telling you no.
No, well,
And-
okay. It's
yeah.
interesting, right? So by law, you're an adult. You're 18 years
Yep.
old. You can make your own decisions.
Yeah.
Are you making the best decisions? Probably not, because you don't have parameters anymore.
Exactly.
There's no guidelines that you have to follow.
Yeah.
It's basically like, okay, well, these are your responsibilities. It's up to you to decide how you want to follow those
Dude.
responsibilities, right?
This point in timeline with people is so crazy, because it's almost like that what's those people that live in that community, and then like they can choose to leave that community to go like check out the world or whatever.
Shoot.
Sunstar or whatever.
The-
But anyway, it's kind of like that, where it's like you have no not guidance. You just don't have people telling you no. Like,
Yeah.
you can do whatever you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
And what I realized is like, man, I'm terrible. Like, there's things that
Yeah. Yeah.
and I just thought that, because when you're saying like, there's no one really to watch over me and whatnot, what am I gonna choose? Like, but it's crazy, because like what you said, you chose like to kind of get your butt back up and turn your life around.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna be dramatic.
Sure.
Most people are like, oh, I'm lucky I didn't end up in dead or in jail.
Yeah.
Wasn't like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it got to a point where like I think that I wouldn't have made the most of my time if I had made different decisions there. So once again, going back, not reneging on anything, but going back to the whole higher education thing, like the experiences that I had with the people there were so important. And I think that when I got to the point where I was able to put myself in circles with people that I could actually learn from, and outside of the classroom, that's really the most experience, like the most important experiences that I had when I was in college.
If you look at your timeline at like a bird's eye view, what do you think was the most formative? What was the most formative thing that helped, or what do you call, in what part of your life formed who you are today?
Okay, so
Was it like your time with your family, or a small kid time, or
I mean, you draw from pockets of
Okay.
your life, right? Different times. My upbringing is what established my core values, and I owe that all to my family. So when I think about what's important to me to this day, it's from them. When I think about high school and the things that I had prioritized back then, like I had a lot of friends that I might not be in contact with anymore, but
Yeah.
influenced me so much in a positive way that, I think that was also very important. College, for better or worse, really kind of got me thinking about the type of person that I wanted to be. And I think that was important as well. One thing that really was a big thing for me after I moved here, and kind of, got established, working, in the corporate world, and then jumping over into retail and working in that entire environment for multiple years. The decision to kind of branch off and become an entrepreneur I
Uh,
would say probably that was one of the most turning points in my life, to be honest with you. And
mm,
that happened pretty late in life. I was
mm,
already in my 30s when I made that decision. And, you know, it's interesting. We've brushed upon, like the business and all of that stuff.
mm.
Um, Even though I have so many regrets of how things played out, the one thing that it taught me was just resilience. Things that when things don't work out as planned, and if you don't have a plan B,
Yeah.
you just feel like your world kind of crumbles from under you, right? And
Mm,
as horrifying as that sounds, I kind of needed that to really put things in perspective for me of what was important in
yeah.
life. And kind of, again, not that I was in rock bottom, but it
Sure.
felt that way. Like
Mm,
when it comes to just financially, when it came to just, the time loss, when it came to the people that I lost in my life during that period,
yeah.
I did really feel like I was at rock bottom, and kind of just building my way back up. That really taught me a lot about myself. And I think that for me is probably the most relevant experience that I've had in quite some
Mm,
time to have created this version of myself.
yeah. Yeah. Would you say that during that time was that one of the times that you were most afraid of things into?
Absolutely, absolutely, hands
Mm,
down. Like hands down. And it everything mattered so much more during that period because financially it was a risk,
yeah.
and I went all in. Like I said, I didn't have a plan B. If this wasn't gonna
Mm,
work, I didn't have anything to fall back on. You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um, and you can say that about anybody that enters into entrepreneurship, right? You got to go all in, and
Mm,
and sometimes it works, sometimes the gamble doesn't, and for me it didn't work out.
yeah.
But when it came to just the relationships that were lost over that period, that was also really really horrifying, because that was my entire being at that moment. Like all of my friends were somehow tied into this business, and when that imploded, I lost a lot of them.
Wow.
So, that was that. But yeah, man, it was definitely probably one of the most formative but also scary points in my life.
What were you most afraid of in that season?
Um Starting over again,
Mm,
like when I moved to Oahu, I didn't know anyone, and I didn't know anything. And I got to a point where I felt like I knew everyone and I felt like I knew everything.
yeah.
So as far as being humbled, probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because
Mm,
then you kind of just get knocked back on your ass and you're just like, well, you got to start all over again, right? and and
yeah.
and at this point, how everything you had worked up to and to that point, it just felt like it was gone. So
Dang.
that was
Yeah.
really really difficult, but also good life lesson. I think it made me a much stronger person in
Mm,
general. Yeah.
yeah. If you take yourself back to that place,
hmm
Joe, like what went through your mind on like a daily basis when the things didn't work out?
Financially, I was always worried about money.
Fine.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. Because everything was just tied to how well we were doing in the business. That would
Yeah.
also be tied to how well I was doing financially.
I hear you.
And you can talk to any entrepreneur that'll tell you that you're gonna struggle for years, and it was a struggle, but not to the point where you just felt like if this doesn't work out, like I have nothing. And that kind of was the fear that I had, right?
Was this transparent to like your family? Like, did they know?
Not entirely. Okay.
Mm,
So,
mm,
and this was hard too, right?
mm.
Again, back to that honesty piece, I think that I was able to let them know that things were not brewing well in the pot here,
Yeah.
but not to the point where they thought like this thing could just be taken away from me.
Yeah.
So when I made the decision to leave, and I had to tell them about it, like
Mm.
it caught them off guard. And you got to remember, my parents thought they had known everything about me. And
Yeah.
I think in my defense, I never wanted to worry them financially, like that I was
Yeah.
not okay with things.
Yeah.
But there was also just this element of shame. It was this ego piece that I had
Oh,
where like
bro.
I just was embarrassed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not only did I put my life savings into this, I also borrowed money from them too.
Mm.
And they didn't expect any type of return at all. You know, it was just a gift of like, hey, you know, we believe in you. So when it didn't work out, man, you can imagine just kind of crawling
Yeah.
back and being like, hey, you know, I lost everything. Like,
Yeah.
sucks.
I hear you,
Yeah.
bro. Yo, shouts out parents,
Hey, man,
man.
not to get
I
too
feel,
heavy on that, but yeah, man.
I feel like your parents and my parents are similar. Like they're man, yeah, I love your parents, man.
Well, yeah, no, you know what it is that the biggest gamble you're ever gonna take is probably on your kids, right? You know, because you believe in them
Yeah.
and you want them to, you know, follow their dreams. And if they're
Yeah.
telling you that this is what they want to do, you're gonna try to do everything you can to make sure that that happens for
100%.
them, right?
Yeah.
And it might not be financially, not everybody's in that place, but they're gonna put all the support that they can into your whatever passion you have, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is a gamble. And, you know, I can't even imagine like for families to just be like, oh, okay, we got to help him pick up the pieces now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of where, yeah, I leaned on him. I leaned on him heavy.
Do you remember that conversation though?
Yeah, man, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. Again, letting them know it was kind of a shock because they were still on the Big Island, right?
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
getting this information from me and them kind of like realizing this was all happening without them knowing, you know, especially
Yeah.
when business went bad, partnerships went bad, like I felt like I was guarding them from that, but I really wish I had been more honest about it because I
Wow.
think it really caught them off guard. And their main concern was, "Are you okay?" You know, and
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
let them know that I wasn't, you know, I think that's really where they had to step in, and not just, you know, it's interesting. I think more so than anything else, they just provided the support that I needed to be like, look, you know, again, my dad's famous words, right? Like, hey, not the end of the world, not, and you know, like, right, and
Yeah.
it felt like it was right.
Sure. 100%. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, it was really like, okay, well, what are we gonna do now? What are you gonna do now
What's the
to kind of get
plan?
back on your feet? You know,
Yeah.
and then I've just been very lucky. I've had a lot of amazing opportunities that have been presented myself just because, you know, I feel very fortunate in that sense, and you know, I was able to kind of just get back on my feet and, you know, get to a place of where I am today. You know,
Yeah.
because I don't know, I don't think everybody could have recovered from that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine the stress that you, I mean, someone would have to go through like
Yeah.
with that. So, what would you say to someone that because you understand that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I mean, if you were talking to yourself or if you had yourself
Mm-hmm.
to access like your
Mm-hmm.
future self, what's the best thing you could have said to
Yeah,
yourself
I
back
mean,
then?
you got to go into everything wholeheartedly, but you also gotta you have to keep your guard up, and not just towards people, but just towards any variable that could happen. Right? You can't let your defenses down ever.
Mm.
You know, being vigilant is such an important thing. You know, kind of always just keeping your eyes open to every situation, and again, it has very little to do with just people, just in general. Like you gotta think of any potential circumstance that could happen and how that could play out, because if
Mm.
not, then you can get blindsided, you know.
Mm.
So that'd probably be my number one advice. Yeah.
Mm-mm. In that situation, do you
Mhm.
think it's something that could have been avoided even with that awareness, or was it just too?
um yeah, yes and no.
Mm-mm.
You know, I went through a long period of just really, I had a lot of animosity towards what happened and a lot of animosity tied towards people.
Mm.
I mean, it's hard, right? Like, I have zero relationship with the people that I was involved with. You know, we're not friends.
Mm.
But I don't want to. It sucks to just hold that weight.
Sure.
You know, like
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll go as far as saying I wish them well.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, you know, but I don't have a relationship at all.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why the friendship and the relationship couldn't be mended was there was just too many egos involved, myself included.
Mm.
When it was happening, I think it was really easy for me to play victim
Yeah.
and not really realize the role that I played in that. So
Sure.
part of, you know, the work that I've done is just kind of seeing that I definitely had a role in that as well. There are two
Yeah.
sides to every coin. And being able to accept that accountability, you know, and being able to realize like, hey, I was in the bad too. That was my
Yeah.
bad as well, you know.
Mm.
And again, that's only my narrative. They have their own interpretation of everything. And
Yeah.
in that story, I'm the bad guy. How about that, right?
Right. Right.
And
right.
you know, you got to be okay with that. You know, I think for me, you're just kind of fighting against this idea of like, no, I'm right, they're wrong.
Yeah.
Um, humbling yourself and just realizing that, hey, you know what? There's always gonna be a different a different narrative on everything that happens,
Yeah.
and just being okay with that, learning to be okay with that.
Uh-huh.
I think if I had that going into things, I
Would have
probably would have
been.
been a lot more even keeled.
How did you cope with that whole thing? Because at some point, you kind of jumped over the hurdle where it's like, I
Yeah.
think I'm okay now.
Well,
You know what
I
I
mean,
mean?
I just jumped into the work that I found, I was able to jump into the work that I found. I think what was good was at that point, because I had, basically kind of severed ties with so many people. It was I was guarded, but I was also very receptive into meeting new people. But establishing a different type of relationship with these new friends, right?
Uh huh.
One that where um I definitely wanted to get to know people, and I wanted people to know me, but one where I think I always would just kind of have a little bit of walls up, if that makes
For
sense.
sure. Yeah. I mean, after
Um,
going through that,
oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's like I'm
But
never having a business partner
oh
again.
yeah. No, that's for sure, right? But yeah, I mean, with that said, like, I think a lot of the friends that I initially made after all that happened, like, some of them proved to be really good people in my life,
Mhm.
yourself included,
Mhm.
and I think that being said, like, your walls start to come down a little bit more, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you just are able to recognize that, hey, like, I'm surrounded by good things right now. I'm
Mm.
appreciative for opportunities that I've had. I'm
Yeah.
appreciative for the people that are in my life,
Yeah.
and things are moving in the right direction. I don't know if I'll ever be satisfied in regards to, like, I'm always trying to strive towards something better,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like, I am able to appreciate, you got to kind of take a time to pause and just be like, hey, life's good right now, dude.
Wow. Yeah.
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 So,
Yeah.
all that to say, yeah, I mean, it took some time, but I think I'm there.
Mm.
I think I'm there.
That's
Yeah.
solid.
Yeah.
When you're talking and just being thankful for, stop and be thankful.
Hmm.
I read something somewhere recently where it said, you can't be anxious and grateful at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good
And I
one.
was like, dang, that's good.
That's really good.
That's good.
Can't be anxious and grateful at the
And it's
same
like
time.
now you shift. I'm thinking now when I read that, I was like, dang, that's really good because now that prompts me to shift my attitude and just be grateful for things.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that can't be.
Yeah.
If I never want to be anxious, I'd just be grateful for the things that I have.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
That's crazy.
That's awesome.
As
That's
we wind down, bro, what
Yeah.
occupies your minds these days?
Man. How many more questions you got?
This might be the last one.